The grand dance of relationships between the sexes has been happening since the beginning. Men and women trying to figure each other out. What do they want? What are they thinking? How do men think? How do women think? Well, the difficulty lies in the reality that they think differently. Men and women do not think the same. Men think one way, women think another. Why is this? Well, it's because we were designed that way. We were designed to complement each other, really in a lifelong relationship. That's what the full design is all about. One is not better than the other. Men like the way they think because they're men, and women like the way they think because they're women. It's just the way they are. Both were designed to bring different aspects to a relationship together. However, a lot of guys today are struggling to connect with women. They say things like, well, what do women want? What do they need from me? The problem is, with all the mixed messaging that's out there, with all the stuff that everybody's being inundated with, a lot of women don't even know themselves. So what's a man to do? Is it helpless? Well, not at all. You see, men can focus on just a few key things in their life that they can control. And as they do that, they will develop into the type of man that women want. So let's find out what those things are on today's show. Let's jump in.
Welcome to the Confident Man Podcast, empowering men with the confidence they need to live their adventure. Now, here is your host, David Maxwell.
Hey guys, welcome to the Confident Man Podcast. I'm so glad you joined me here today. We are continuing our March Man Month. What we're doing is Monday through Friday during the month of March, we're releasing a podcast every day just to pour into you guys. We took some of our most popular themes and we created new content out of it just to pour into you so you can take the month of March to fight to be a better man. Now, we're beginning a section that really deals with some of our most popular topics, and that's the topics of relationships, men and women, how to be a man that women want, how to have better relationships. We're going to cover it all. And today we're starting with being the man women want. You know, a lot of guys aren't sure what that means. In fact, a lot of guys think that being the man women want means being the man. And when they say the man, it's funny because every man has a specific type in their mind. What do women want? And they'll think of maybe an actor. They'll think of a musician. They'll think of something. The problem is there's really no perfect guy out there. It's just really a figment of our own imagination. And when we think there is the guy, that can be a problem. It's funny, in my mind, when I think of the guy, I think of a movie I watched with my kids when they were little, Spy Kids 2. Yes, if you go back and watch it now, it's a cheesy movie, I'm sure, but it was made for kids, and the kids loved it. And the funny thing is, in Spy Kids 2, there was a scene where they were looking for the guy. And at one point, the guy came out, and it was Elijah Wood playing the guy, which is great because he was Frodo in Lord of the Rings, so he was the guy in that. But in this, he's like, hey, I'm the guy. And there was music, and everybody was like, yeah, we're going to win now. We've got the guy. And then one quick scene later, he gets killed. He's done. And so they're freaking out because they're like, what happened to the guy? And it was one of the best plot twists in the world. I loved it. And it made the movie hilarious because it was so campy and fun. But we kind of, as men, sometimes look at relationships that way. I have to be the guy. And we're really thinking what the guy is. And so when we think we have to be a guy, we try to be that guy, but then we end up not. And so we get hurt, we get broken up with, we get divorced, we have all these relational problems because there's no such thing as the guy. There's no perfection thing. And we've got to understand that as men. We can't have a figment of our imagination be what drives us, be what we think it is, because that keeps us out of reality. We don't look at the reality of our own life and the reality of the relationship we could have with a woman. The key to being a man women want is to stop trying to be the guy and focus on what's my design as a man? Who am I supposed to be as a man? When you do that, it will actually do what you want and make you more attractive to women. And you do that by working on three key areas of life. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The first one is you got to quit being what they want. Okay, that sounds counterintuitive. We're going to get into that. You got to start developing Our security. Men have to start developing our security. We've got to know who and what we are. And then we've got to drive our own life as men. I promise you, you work on these three areas, you will instantly be more attractive to women. The first thing we want to talk about is how we need to quit being what they want. Yes, that's right. You've got to stop. Being a man that women want starts with us stopping ourselves from trying to be what they want. Now you may think, well, that sounds kind of weird, Dave. Is that really true? No, trust me, it is true. As men, we have to quit adopting ourselves on every whim that we think women want, or we'll never be the men we were designed to be. Because what happens is we change. Well, I'm around this woman, so I'm going to act like this. I'm around this woman, so I'm going to act like this. I dated this woman. And what happens as men is we never really figure out who we are. We kind of become like that middle school kid. Did you know that kid in middle school who, whenever they got around the cool kids, they changed. They were your friend one moment, and then they came back after summer vacation, hanging out with the cool kids, and they became a completely different person. And you're like, wait a minute, we were friends just 3 months ago. What happened to you? Well, they changed. Why? Because they wanted to fit in. And when we fit in, or when we try to fit in, we change who we are. We change what we think. And a lot of times we don't really know who we are. And a lot of men are doing that today. They're changing who they are to become accepted by a woman. And that's a problem for men, because that's not how we were designed. You see, if we never figure out who we are, then we'll never develop ourselves as men. We'll always play a part. We'll play a part with our girlfriend or our spouse. Then we'll play a part as a dad. We'll play a part as a worker. And these are all roles we have, but you don't want to be fake in those roles. Because as a man, you'll always wear a mask and you'll never learn how to take that mask off. And the problem with that is if we're continuing to wear masks, that keeps us from really developing an honest, open relationship. And that's the struggle a lot of guys are having today. They think they're doing the right thing. I'm being who she wants, but you're not being who you are because you don't know who you are, because you've always pretended to be something else to try and fit in, to try and get women to like you. Well, they just want to know the real you, but a lot of men don't even know who they are. So when they go into a relationship with that mask on, there's trouble from the beginning, because a man can't really get open and honest with a woman if he's not open and honest with himself. And what happens is a lot of men get into marriage and then they start wanting to figure out who they really are. Well, that's kind of unfair. It's kind of deceptive, because we got a girl, we married a girl based on one person, but then we take our mask off and we change. And we change into another person. And so the wife is going, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? See, it's kind of deceptive. Now, some of that does happen naturally. Two people get married, let's say they're 25, both 25. Well, by the time you're 25 to 35, you do a lot of changing. You do a lot of growing as a couple. But the interesting part is you do it openly and honestly together when you get married and you don't wear that mask. But when a man doesn't know who he is, then he gets into a long-term relationship. Then he starts taking his mask off. Well, the wife is like, wait, who are you? You're not the person I married. Even if you change, you began it from a process of distrust. And that's hurt a lot of relationships. In fact, a lot of marriages haven't survived that. And the man thinks, well, what's the problem? Well, the problem is she married one person, but that's a character you played. It's not the real you. In fact, you're still figuring out the real you. And for her, she's like, oh, I don't know if I can trust you. Even if you say, hey, this is the real me now. Or is it? Does she know that? Can she know that? So a lot of marriages suffer because of that. They struggle through it because of that. And a lot of guys today are not developing as men because they're spending all their time changing based on who they're trying to attract. They're acting like this guy to attract this girl, or acting like this guy. Now, there is a natural type of change that does happen in relationships. As two people get to know each other, they let their guard down a little more. Those things happen, but they come from a place of authenticity. That's how they should come. But when a man is constantly changing based on the girl, he's not taking the time to figure himself out. So he can't change. He doesn't know. And what happens is that stunts our growth as men. We don't grow emotionally. We don't grow mentally. That's why you see so many adult adolescents, men who are older, but they've never really grown up. You know, the guy in his 40s who's still acting like he's 17. That's a problem. Why? Because he doesn't know who he is. So he keeps playing a character. Now, I'm not talking about the regular adjusting to life that happens to everybody, where you serve, you bless someone, you change, you grow. That's good and that's normal. But you want to do that from a place of authenticity. You see, there's natural growth and strength in every man as he gets older. And in marriage, it happens automatically. And what happens is a man who's authentic can genuinely change, can genuinely serve his wife, his children, others, because he's doing it not from a place of manipulation, but the place of authenticity. Men who wear masks, everything they do is with the mask of manipulation. I'm going to try to control this situation and try to act like one way so you'll think this way of me. Well, that's not authenticity. That's manipulation. And that's a problem. You can't build a deep relationship through manipulation. You can do a lot of stuff, but it's not an authentic, deep, long-lasting relationship. And as men, we want to be authentic. We want to grow and change. We do. We want to mature. But men have to go on that journey of figuring themselves out, or they won't know how to authentically connect with women. So what you have to do is understand that quality women want a man who's authentic above all else. She wants to know we are who we say we are. We're not playing a part. And what this does is it gives a really strong foundation for any future relationship, for any future growth. A lot of guys today go from relationship to relationship, girl to girl, because they don't know how to bring their true selves to a relationship. They're just playing a part. And they go into it with an already weak relationship, and they wonder why their relationships don't last. You see, going on your authentic journey as a man will help you learn who you are. And as you begin to do that, you don't change who you are based on the woman. You become the man that you are, and you will naturally attract the right kind of woman for you. The second thing we want to do as men to become more attractive to women is we have to start building our security. Now, insecurity is one of the biggest problems among men today, really men of all ages. And in relationships, it kind of shows us two main ways. You see it in relationships in two main ways. The first one is there are men who are controlled by women. Now, these are the guys who allow themselves to be manipulated, to be controlled. The funny thing is a lot of these guys come across as the really strong, macho, I know what I'm doing, nobody tells me what to do, I'm the man, I can be the man. But a lot of times these are the guys, it's funny, they get involved with women who know how to feed their ego. They know it's an insecure ego, so those women feed it, and by nature of that, they control those men. And the men would tell you, no woman's going to tell me what to do. No woman's going to do this or that. I'm the man. I do what I want. But those guys are often the very ones who are the most controlled by women. And they don't even realize it because they're being manipulated. And the problem is that's a major pain in a man's life. His insecurity is causing him to be controlled, to be manipulated, and he doesn't even know it. And then when he gets hurt, that kind of guy will get super cynical toward relationships. He'll, all women are trouble. There's no good women out there and things like that. And those are the guys who, they'll sit around the bar and tell you all about how bad women are because they've been hurt. But really their hurt came out of their own insecurity. Now, the other side of that is the men who change for women based on their own insecurity. And we just talked about that for the whole point. We talked about those kind of guys. And what it is they don't want to develop themselves because they're always changing to fit what a woman wants. Both of those sides are out of security, or insecurity. And the guy needs security. He needs to build up his foundation of security. Now, how do we do that? Well, you've got to build up the foundation of who you are as a man. You see, your security is based on that foundation that you have as a man. And every man has to do that work within himself. No one can do it for you. And I'm talking about things like our character. We have to have character as men, our worldview, our purpose. These are kind of the big questions of life. But if you're insecure, you're not really asking those questions. And a lot of guys are living distracted, insecure lives, and they avoid these questions. They don't want to answer them. And if you never wrestle with them, then you never grow. You never develop that emotional maturity, that mental maturity. You never develop a foundation for your security. Now you may say, well, okay, David, are you saying I have to figure out every aspect of my life before I can have a relationship? Well, no, you're always going to grow and change and do all that. But the thing is, if the more of these things you kind of know, you kind of work on, you kind of figure out, the better chance you have for stronger relationships. Because if you know who you are as a man, you have your character down, you know your worldview, you know your purpose. Even if you're just kind of moving in a direction, you may not know the specific details, but you've got the main purpose down for your life, then you're going to become a much more secure man. You're going to be much more attractive to the right kind of women. And men, a lot of times, hide from this deep thinking. They do. They get involved with all the distractions of life. They get into all the virtual things. They go to parties. They have all kinds of casual sex. They do all this other stuff. And really what they're doing is they're hiding from their purpose as men. Or they put in these things that really aren't a purpose. I want to make money. I want to be popular. I want to be famous. But those are the men who aren't wrestling with the meaning of their life. What those guys are doing is they're just kind of playing. So they're not growing up. So they stay that adult adolescent that we've talked about. And when a man does that, he's never going to attract a quality woman. He's never going to attract the kind of woman that he can really build a strong, intimate relationship with. You see, higher quality women want a secure man. They want a man who knows who he is, who kind of knows where he's going. He may not have everything in life figured out, but he's got that confidence. And then when that kind of woman gets with that kind of man, they're going to have a better relationship. Their relationship has better odds of surviving and making it because they have that security. Men who don't develop security never grow up. They never mature. You know, you see the older guy trying to be cool. In fact, I used to work with students for a long time, and it was amazing to me how I would see parents who had children who were teenagers trying to be cool parents so the friends of their kids thought they were cool, which is so weird to me because here you are, maybe you're a 40, 45-year-old adult putting your well-being into the hands of a 16-year-old who doesn't even know what they want for lunch that day. And we want them to think we're cool. And so we're going to change who we are for them. Now, it's weird, but I've seen it. And I think a lot of men do that today. They place their coolness based on other people. And what we have to do as men is develop our own security. When we do that, it grows us up. It matures us. We have a life of purpose and meaning. It doesn't mean we become perfect. No one is perfect. But we have a larger capacity to grow and develop as men. You see, when a man is secure, he's willing to grow. And as we grow as men, the better our relationships can be because we'll have a deeper ability to become intimate. So I want to challenge you to start building the foundations of your life as a man. When you become more secure, you become more attractive. The third thing we want to understand is that men have to drive their own lives. We've got to drive our own life as men. If we want to be a man who women find attractive, a man who women want, we've got to take responsibility for our own life. And a lot of men in our society are not really good at that today. It's a problem. You know, whenever you go to the restaurant and you get a cup of hot coffee and it says on the cup, warning, contents may be hot. Well, yes, That's why I got coffee. I want it hot. Most people want hot coffee. But it's funny, we put that on there because somebody spilled it and they were like, oh, I didn't know it was hot. And they weren't taking responsibility for themselves. So everybody pays. Well, that lack of responsibility is happening among a lot of men today. They're not taking responsibility for their life. And we think, oh, that's just young men. No, it's men of all ages. I've seen that lack of responsibility in a lot of men's life, and it's called untold damage. I've seen dads who've walked out on their family, who don't fulfill their role as a dad. And it hurts a lot of kids. It hurts their kids. It hurts generations. And what we have to do as men is we have to get to that point where we decide, I'm going to live and drive my life. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to take responsibility for my actions. I'm going to take responsibility for my thoughts. I'm going to take responsibility for how I live. It's a serious thing. Now, many men don't want to do it because it is serious. It's a heavy responsibility, and they're scared. They're scared of the consequences of their actions. They're scared of the consequences of their decisions. But those consequences and the fear of those consequences actually help us grow up and be better men. That's the whole thing. When you decide that you want to drive your life, you're deciding to be a better man, and you're going to be a mature man. And quality women want a man who knows who he is and knows what he's doing with his life. He knows really what direction he's driving his life, and he's actually driving it. They don't want a man who's a control freak. Now, understand this. We think, oh, I got to control everything in my life. No, if you try to control everything, that's actually a sign of massive insecurity. Men who are hyper control freaks are the men who think I have to control everything because they're so insecure about themselves that they want to keep the world in a specific order, mainly to hide. But a man who's driving his life knows he can't control everything, but he can control himself. He can control his thoughts. He can control his actions. And he doesn't waste time on things he can't control. He doesn't need to control other things and people. He doesn't do it out of insecurity. He knows that if unexpected things come up, if the unexpected of life happens, he's going to work through it. Why? Because he's driving his own life. He knows who he is. And that is an attractive thing to women. These kinds of men can live authentically because they're constantly developing themselves and growing themselves because they're taking responsibility for themselves. When a man is doing that, he actually is willing to look at himself honestly. He's willing to say, hey, these are some areas I'm good at, and these are some areas I'm not so good at. He's willing to grow and change. He's willing to take in feedback. And this gives this man an ability to see the problems of his life and to do something about it. These kind of guys are the ones who open up themselves and say, hey, tell me the blind spots in my life. Why? Because they're secure in who they are and they're taking responsibility for their life. They know I'm never going to be perfect, but if people give me feedback, I can change and grow. I can develop my life in such a way that these weaknesses don't hurt me. These blind spots don't hurt me. And these men will seek to fix them or bring people into their life to help them. This is why you see a lot of men who don't want their wife to do anything. They don't want their wife to help with anything. It's mainly because of their own insecurity, because they're afraid. My wife might be better at me than something, and I can't let anybody see that because I'm the man. He's actually an insecure man. A guy who's taking responsibility for his life, who's secure in himself, will celebrate his wife's gifts and say, you know what, babe, you're better at this than I am. I'm going to let you do this rather than me because you're better at it. I promise you, a man who does that to his wife, she's going to love him more and more. I'm not talking about just putting something aside you don't want to do and making her do it. I'm talking about recognizing, baby, you're better than this. You're better than me than this. You see, that's a guy who knows himself, who's taking responsibility for himself, and that's a guy who's super attractive to a woman. You see, driving our life as men means we have a direction. We know where we're going. We're going to a purpose that's bigger than ourselves. We're living for something outside of ourselves. And when men have that perspective, it keeps them moving ahead. It keeps them growing. They're not trying to control everything. They're not trying to hide their imperfections because they're going toward a purpose. And that opens up in men a humility that women find very attractive. It's not that false humility of, oh no, I'm so humble. No, it's just a genuine humility of, hey, I think you're better than me at this. See, that's incredibly attractive to women because those same very men know, hey, I'm good at this. I can do this well. And they're confident in those areas. Men who drive their life don't get caught up in all the stuff that's out there. There's a lot of hedonistic garbage that traps men today. They get into the pleasures, they get into doing this or that, and a lot of men through centuries have fallen into those traps. But a man who's driving his own life understands those dangers. He understands that those things could take me down, so I'm going to take steps so they don't take me down. They know that the hill of hedonism, it's a fun ride on the way down, but there's a crash at the bottom that's waiting. And a man who's driving his life, who's secure, he understands that. And he wants more for his life. He doesn't want to just live for a momentary pleasure. Those men are incredibly attractive to quality women because they can trust them. And those men are taking responsibility, not just for themselves, like for their job or whatever. It's every area of their life, for their mental growth, for their mental state, for their physical growth, their physical state, their spiritual growth, their spiritual state, their emotional growth, and their emotional state. They're not waiting for someone else to fix them. They're working to grow and be better. It doesn't mean they're going to be perfect. It means they're growing. It means they're taking steps. Men who choose to live their life, not just based on their own desires, but based on a purpose, they apply that purpose to all 4 areas of their life. How am I doing in this area? How am I doing in that area? Those are men who've decided to drive their own life. And men who are like that are very secure, and they're gonna keep going. Even if it means sometimes going slow, even if it means approaching areas that are uncomfortable in their life, they're like, oh man, that's uncomfortable. I don't like that, but I know I need to go through this to become a better man. You see, those men are driving. And even if it's slow, even if it's step by step, they're gonna grow. And women will see these men. They'll see that they're faithful. They'll see they have an attitude of development and growth. And those men are amazingly attractive, especially to high quality women. All right, guys, closing out the show today, we want to understand that the goal of our life is not to be the guy, not to be the guy that women want. It's to focus on developing as a man and being the man that we were designed to be. The beauty of it is every man is different. As we grow and develop as a man, we become more attractive because we develop who we were designed to be. We focus on our strengths, our abilities. We're not trying to be someone else. We're just being ourselves. That's incredibly attractive to women. It's amazing how much women will be attracted to you when you're just yourself. You're not playing pretend. You're not wearing a mask. In fact, you're not even focusing on women. You're focusing on yourself. You're focusing on growing yourself, being better. You see, what you want to do is focus on those areas. You want to quit being just what women want. Be who you are. Don't play a part. You want to develop your own security. Stop living in the world of insecurity. Stop doing the things that are making you more insecure. Develop your purpose. Develop your core beliefs. Be a man who knows who he is. And then you want to drive your own life. You want to be a man who takes responsibility. When you do all 3 of those, you're going to see actually enormous growth in your life, enormous change in your life. And doing this will actually give you a better life and make you more attractive to women.
You've been listening to the Confident Man Podcast. Click subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. You can connect with David on Facebook and Instagram at David the Maxwell. Find resources to help you as a man at theconfidentman.me. That's theconfidentman.me.